So it's been about 2 or 3 years since voice AI agents have become popular, and this includes platforms like Vapi or Retail, which are more inclined for developers to learn how to use the platform and then deploying these agents. But as time goes by, it has become easier and easier to deploy these agents by making it easier for us developers to spin something useful in less time. So today I want to show you how you can set up a quick and easy AI receptionist agent that's able to book appointments into your Google Calendar and saving information into a Google Sheet. If you don't know me, my name is Josue and I've been building AI systems for a little over a year and a half now. And I recently started my YouTube channel to show you guys how you can build these systems on your own, as well as providing you with the resources that you need to do so. So if you would like to set this system up yourself, I'll be leaving a link down below with all the resources that you need to do so. And before we dive into how to set it up, I'm going to show you guys a quick demo.
Hey there, thanks for calling AZ Roofing Co. This is Laura. How can I help you today?
Hi, I would like to book an appointment for a roof inspection.
Awesome, I can help with that. Could I please have the email address associated with your account so I can look you up?
My email is Josue, that is Josue, .hernandez04@gmail.com.
Thanks for clarifying. So your email is joshua.hernandez04@gmail.com, right?
Yes.
Could you please? Perfect. Since you're a new client, I'll need your full name and phone number to get you set up. Could you please provide those?
So my name is Josue, that is Josue Hernandez, and then my phone number is 510-600-0000.
Thanks a bunch, Jose Hernandez. Just to double check, your phone number is 510-600-0000, right? If
That's right.
Correct. I'll get. Awesome. Give me 1 second to send that in and create your profile. Great. Now, you mentioned you want to book an appointment for a roof inspection. Could you please tell me the date and time you'd like to schedule it? Our appointments last 1 hour.
So I would like something tomorrow, Thursday, December 11th. What do you have available tomorrow?
Let me check on that real quick for you. So for tomorrow, December 11th, we do have availability except for a slot from 10:15 a.m. to 11:45 a.m., which is booked. You can pick any other time between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. for your 1 hour roof inspection. What time works best for you?
Can we do something at 9 a.m.?
Perfect choice. So you want to book your roof inspection for 9 a.m. tomorrow, December 11th. Just to confirm, the appointment will last 1 hour from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m. Let me process that for you. You got it. Your roof inspection appointment is all set for 9 a.m. tomorrow, December 11th, lasting 1 hour until 10 a.m. If you need to change anything or have more questions, just give me a shout. Anything else I can help you with today?
That's all. Thank you very much. All right, so I just had to hang up on her there. But you can see that it works very smooth, and you can see the information was saved into the Google Sheets. So initially, it saved my email, name, my phone, and the date. The date just means the date that the call was performed. But then after booking the appointment, it also saved the appointment date and the service type. So we're going to jump in how to build this, and just let me show you really quick what we're using in order to achieve this. We're basically using an MCP tool, which communicates with an MCP server that's inside N8N that has all these other functionalities, which include getting user, creating a user, getting the available slots, and then booking the appointment. And really all of these tools are just sub workflows. So if I were to open the get user workflow, it's a very simple workflow that I'm going to dive in a little deeper here in a bit, but it basically searches for the user in the Google Sheets, and if they don't exist, then Vapi receives a message saying they don't exist, we need to create a new user for them. That's when it goes ahead and uses this other one that's called creating a user. Very simple workflow. All it does is add a new row into the sheets. Then we have getting the available slots. Also a very simple workflow, but in this case, we're using Google Calendar to pull in the events for the date that the user specifies and checking what are the busy times that they have during that day. Then we have the booking appointment one. Also very simple. The thing that happens here is it searches for the user, creates the Google Calendar event, updates the information in that specific user, that's adding the service type and also the time that the appointment will be happening. And then it sends an email, which is just the appointment confirmation, like I showed here at the end. So I'm going to start off by breaking down how you set up the assistant inside Vapi. We're basically going to be using the model GPT-4.1 Mini for this case. I noticed that 4.1 Mini is a little bit cheaper, so it saves us a couple cents by minute, so it's not too expensive to run, and it also helps out with the latency since it responds faster to whatever the user says. Then we have it in a mode so that the first message is said by the assistant. Our message here is, hey there, thanks for calling AZ Roofing Co. This is Laura, how can I help you? So in this case, I'm simulating that this is a roofing company, but this can be adjusted into pretty much any type of service-based businesses such as HVAC, landscaping, or painting. So as I mentioned before, we're going to be using MCP, and what this allows us to do is to give this agent direct access to our N8N workflows and sub workflows, and to dynamically call those tools without us having to create separate individual tools inside of Vapi. So before we had this MCP tool, what we would have to do is we would have to go here into create a tool and click here on custom tool. We would give it a name, a description, and we would define the parameters. And what the parameters are, they would be the email address, the phone number, and start date, end date. So let's say if we wanted to book an appointment, we would have to create a tool called book an appointment, and then we would have to add the different parameters such as start date and end date of the appointment. And then we would have to connect it to a webhook, in which then we would have to come here into N8N and create a webhook with that address, and we would connect it directly in the book an appointment workflow. So instead of being executed by a sub workflow, we would have the webhook get triggered from N8N, and then it would execute the flow. But now with MCP, all we have to do is just add the MCP server trigger and create the different sub workflows. And if I open one of this, you'll notice that we have different inputs. So one of them, let's say in getting user, it's email. Then in booking an appointment, we're getting the start time, end time, email, service type notes. And if you notice, it says define automatically by the model. And what this means is that through the MCP server tool, Vapi is able to fill out these parameters on its own without us needing to either send it manually or creating a separate agent inside N8N that's going to take care of filling out these tools. Because let's say instead of having the MCP trigger, we decide to just create a webhook tool that Vapi sends a request to, but then it connects to another AI agent inside N8N, which then takes care of calling these tools. Then we're using two agents to complete one task, and this doubles up the reasoning that's needed for this. It's going to be a little bit more costly, but also the latency is going to increase. So there's really no need to do that anymore now that we have the MCP server trigger. But let's continue diving in how we set this up. So going back here into the assistant, we're going to look at the system prompt. So we give it an identity, then we give it a style of how we want it to talk, some response guidelines on, whenever they're calling a tool, they need to say something like, just give me a sec, I'm checking on that, just to avoid any awkward silences. And then we have our tasks and goals, and our tasks and goals are going to be the instructions that are going to let the Vapi agent know how to use different tools that are connected to the MCP. So why don't we go ahead and go one by one on these and how they're being triggered inside N8N. So for the first one, we're just gathering the email. If you notice, when the agent picked up, the first thing it said, it was, can you provide me with your email so I can look up your account? This is the instructions we're given it here. It will always ask for the email first, and once they have the email, we're going to be using the MCP tool N8N to look them up in the Google Sheets. So that's step one. Then step two is actually giving the instructions on how the tool is being called. So when it's looking up the user, again, it's going to be using the MCP tool N8N. We're restating here to say something like, let me check on that real quick, to avoid that awkward silence. And then once it calls the tool, what's happening is it's grabbing that email that the user provided and it's sending it to this sub workflow over here. So if I go to sub workflow get user and let me go into executions, as you can see, it got triggered with my email. The Vapi agent provided this value in here. Then it went ahead and we used a Google Sheets node to get the rows. And then we are using a filter that searches for that specific email. And since nothing was found, it goes down the route that says false. And we sent a message back to Vapi, which is pretty much just setting up a variable with a string value that says new client, please create in the system. And what this is going to do is it's going to tell Vapi, use the create user tool to log them into the system. So let's go back into the prompt here. If the client is a new customer, inform them warmly that no profile was found, collect their additional information, which is just the full name and phone number, and create them using the MCP tool in N8N. Now, in this case, it's going to be using the create a user tool. So this workflow itself takes three different inputs. Email, we're going to need the email to match them back in the sheets and see which is the row that we need to update. We're going to be grabbing the full name and the phone number, which are the two things that it asks before running the tool. So going back into the workflow in here, I can go into my previous executions. Now I'm going to take a look here at what happened. Like I said, the email was provided, the full name, then we have the phone number. And with those three values, we go ahead and use a append a row in sheet step. And what happens here is we're going to be sending values to a specific row to update them. So one of them is going to be name, phone, and date. And the column that we're using to match is going to be the email. That's why we're sending it again in here so that we know which one's the row that we're going to be updating. And the date, I have a function here that uses now and then a formatting formula to get the date like this. Claude helped me out in writing out this form. So if you ever need your data in a specific format, all you need to do is talk to Claude AI and he'll help you out on setting these formulas up. Let's continue down the prompt here. So now that we have it in our system, we're going to be determining the intent. And what this means is figuring out what the user wants, is if they want to book an appointment, or if they have a query, or maybe they want to talk to an actual representative. So in this case, I've prompted so that if it's asking for an appointment, just continue down the flow. It already has the tools that it needs in order to book an appointment. If they are asking for a specific question, then we're going to be using the query tool, which in this case is just going to be a file that we're going to be uploading here. What this allows the agent to do is to have some sort of background information in case the user asks like an FAQ. If we have an answer to the FAQ in the document, then it's going to refer to that one. And then if the agent doesn't find an answer in that file, then it's going to redirect them into contacting the email, which is support@azroofing.com. Same thing if they were wanting to talk to an actual representative, or if it's something that the agent can help. So in this case, our intent was to book an appointment. Right off the bat, when I picked up the phone, I said, I want to book an appointment. So then we moved to appointment management, where we have the instructions on how the agent needs to book an appointment. So first thing they must do is check for availability. Using the MCP tool, they're going to use get available slots here, which is what it says in here. Call it to assess appointment availability. If it returns the entire day is available, it means that they have all day available. If it provides specific time slots, those are busy times. So the way that the Google Calendar node works in here is that it returns you the slots that are taken. So if I go over here and I go to my previous executions, we can see that the endpoint is get many events, and it returns any events that have been booked during that day. That's why we're specifying here that if it provides specific time slots, those are busy time. If checking for a specific date, we have that we're going to be using a 24-hour format with a range of 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. This is important because these are the operation dates of this business. You need to specify these here so that it only looks and takes into account the slots that are available in between those times. Then the user is going to confirm a time, and after the time has been confirmed, inform the client that the appointment lasts 1 hour, and they must also extract the type of the appointment, which is like the service type. In this case, it can be roof repair, roof inspection, roof replacement, or maintenance. And so then we're going to be using the MCP tool again in order to book the appointment. So it's going to extract the start time and calculate the end time, which is 1 hour after, gather their email address and event summary to book it. And so going back here, let's go over how the get available slots work. So as we saw, it's going to be getting an after time and a before time. This is going to be the range that it's going to be checking for. So if it says tomorrow, then it's going to be sending the date for tomorrow between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. So let's go back to the execution. If you see, I asked for tomorrow. Today is December 10th. And here it says December 11th between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. And very simple workflow. Again, we're getting many events, just mapping in those values that the Vapi is filling out through the MCP. We're getting results. Then we have an if in here, that if the summary exists, then nothing happens. And what this allows us to do is for Vapi to see this right here. If we got an empty response, meaning that there's nothing booked for that day, it would go down here and it would send Vapi a message similarly to how we're doing before, which is setting a variable that says the entire day is available. So we just went over how to get the availability. Now we're going to go into how we're actually booking the appointment. So in that case, let's go into the book appointment sub workflow here. And before I open it up and see the previous execution, we can see similarly, we have a start time and end time, an email, but we also have the service type and any additional notes. If you notice here down where it says defined automatically by the model, there's an option to add a description. Here, I'm just adding some formatting rules that it needs to be in UTC with -7 hours, which is just the Phoenix time. And then for the service type must be the service type of the appointment. So you can specify different things in here just to give the MCP tool and Vapi more details on what needs to be filled out. You can also do the same thing up here for when they should be using this tool. I didn't do in this case because I have it in the prompt, but if you want it to be a little bit more consistent, it's worth having both in the prompt and also here. So let's go into the sub execution. So we received the start date and end date, which is just 1 hour apart, 9 to 10 a.m. my email and the service type. And what happens next is we're going to be using this search a user step, which basically locates the row number and where we have our information inside Google Sheets. The reason we're doing this is so that we can get the name and we can add it to the appointment. So if I go back into calendar, you're going to see that the appointment over here has my name and then the service type. Once we have that, we're going to create the event. We're going to be using the endpoint for creating the event. We're going to be mapping in the start time from whatever Vapi filled out and the MCP server, end time as well. The attendees, we're going to be mapping in here the email. We can grab it either from here or the search user. It's going to be the same value. And then for summary, we're just going to be creating this short description of using the name, dash, and then the service type, which we're grabbing in from here. And then the username, which we're getting from Sheets. Once we have that, we're going to update the row and sheets. What we're going to be updating in here is going to be the appointment date, the service type, and any notes. We're going to be using the email to match it. We're grabbing it from the sub execution node. Then the date, I'm also grabbing it from the sub execution node, but again, I'm doing some sort of logic in here that allows me to get my date in this format. Then the service type, mapping it in from sub execution and notes as well. After that, I'm sending a message to the email, which I'm getting from the sub execution as well. Subject, I just hard coded this in here. And then we have an HTML code, which allows us to get a pretty email like this with all the coloring and all the different formatting. This HTML was also generated using Claude. I basically told him what I was looking for. So create an email in HTML that's going to be holding in the name of the person, their service type, and the range of that appointment. And then I replace those values inside the HTML, which allows them to appear in here. So this is 1, this is 2, this is 3, and this is 4. We go back into book an appointment. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, and that's pretty much it. Now, how do you set up the MCP server? So you want to go into tools here and you want to create a new tool. And you want to make sure it's an MCP integration. So you're going to give it a name. You want to make sure that this name matches the name that you're giving the tool in the prompt. Then what you want to do is you want to add a server URL. This server URL is going to be included in the MCP server trigger. So if I look at MCP server trigger, it's going to include a URL here. You want to make sure you're grabbing the production URL. You want to paste that in there. Then what you need to do is you need to add a header, and this is going to be your API key for N8N. So when you click on add header, you're going to type in authorization like I did over here, then bearer, capital B, and then paste your API key for your N8N. So how do you get your N8N API key? It's very simple. You go over here into your profile settings. I'm going to save this real quick. Then if you go to N8N API, you can create a key over here. You're going to give that a name. I usually put the expiration to no expiration so that if I want to use this in the future, I don't have to redo this step. But once you hit on save, it's going to give you a key. And all you're going to be doing is pasting that next to bearer space. And one last thing you need to do is go to MCP settings and click on server sent events. With that, you're going to have your MCP tool ready to go. And the only thing you need to do is go back to the assistant, go into tools, and give them access to that tool in here. Other than that, you don't need to do anything else in here. You're all set to go. You can go ahead and test it through the web. But yeah, that's how MCP makes these setups way easier and how you can set this up really fast. I'm going to be leaving a link down below, as I mentioned, with all of these workflows. So you're going to have access to this main workflow and the other 4 sub workflows. Only thing you would have to do is obviously set up the Vapi agent, for which I'm also going to be leaving in the prompt so that you can just copy and paste it and adjust it to your needs. So if you found this video useful and if you like this types of voice agents, please let me know down in the comments. I'll make sure to create maybe a more complex voice AI agent also using Vapi or any other platform that you might think might be worth knowing. They're all very similar at the end of the day, but make sure to give me a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel, and I'll see you guys on the next one.